All right, so today we're going to be talking about elementals, right? And we're going to start right away that mentioned that there's no understanding of elementals until we understand the nature of animism, which is invariably connected with these spirits. So we have to kind of go back, not too far, but to the late 19th century, early 20th century, to a certain Edward Tyler. He's an English anthropologist. He's one of the pioneers of the idea of religious evolution, especially within prehistoric times. Tyler is most famous for introducing the word animism into academia as a scholastic term. Um, and he defined animism as a faith in the reality of spirits or souls or soul residing in all things, and believed the very first religions were animistic in aspect. For animists, there is no separation between spiritual and physical realms. They don't exist with spirits or souls, not only within humans, but in animals, in plants and stones, and even residing in the natural phenomena such as lightning and thunder and rain and wind. Often spirits are thought to inhabit geographical locations and various features, such as within mountains and rivers and springs and bogs and even minerals. All of them sacred because of it. So you have this idea. Now, it is interesting because I do want to mention that when it comes to ancient Japan, the Genome culture that goes as far as the 14,000 BCE all the way, into the 3200s BC, you have the formation, the gradual formation of Shintoism. And it is fascinating to look at this and examine this because essentially Shintoism is animism that becomes more formalized into actually a localized Japanese religion, but does spread with the Japanese to various places. So we do see evidence that even in within Shintoism that animism does go back pretty far, but we also see this within indigenous beliefs all around the world. And don't worry, we're going to go there. In fact, in many cases, uh, they are still part of localized beliefs, whether it be in sub-Saharan Africa, whether it be within the Americas in general, whether it be Southeast Asia or Australia. We see it everywhere. So animism is not only one of the earliest belief systems, but it is something that continues on. This stream continues on to this day. Now, American physicist and author by the name of Nick Herbert. He asserts that what is called the quantum. Let's go to the first image first. So this was the first image that I was going to talk about. You have this idea that the animism is all about the connection of all things. And so you see here, you have this image here of life producing and connecting to this universe, life and death and rebirth. It's very much a cyclical kind of conception where that which is born, it grows, it dies, it decays, and is reborn again, right? So you have the rhythms of nature, and animism is very much part of those rhythms. So what will happen is Nick Herbert, he asserts what is called the quantum consciousness assumption. Quantum consciousness assumption. What is that? It is, in short, uh, amounts to a kind of quantum animism, which likewise asserts that consciousness is an integral part of the physical world, not an emergent property of special biological or computational systems. So, in other words, since everything in the world is on some level a quantum system, this assumption requires that everything has a consciousness that is on this level. And in other words, uh, not only is everything connected, not only is there, animism is the idea that there's a spirit in all these different kinds of things, but that there is this consciousness that permeates all these things as well. Okay, there's a consciousness. Now, saying that it's all connected, all just simply the one thing, that moves into pantheism. We're not there yet. We'll talk about that soon. But still, that everything is conscious. But this consciousness, this awareness, connects to everything else in a spiritual level. Okay. So what happens is that if the world is truly quantum animated, then there is an immense amount of invisible inner experience going on all around us. Now, that is presently, from the perspective of some people, inaccessible to humans. Of course, I strongly disagree, right? We'll go into that. But for many, according to Nick Herbert, he says, because our lives, our inner lives, he says, are imprisoned inside a small quantum system, isolated deep in the meat of our animal brain, that perhaps we are not capable of it. Well, he kind of plays both sides because he believes that many can be, but many do isolate themselves in this sense. So one system has animism has this idea of the spirit and all different things. This theory of quantum consciousness is that all things are also interconnected on a conscious level, in a deeper level. So eventually, these spirits as occupying forces within the physical world will receive personal names and evolve from being simply nature spirits. Eventually, will become gods and goddesses, each with their own unique aspect or occupation. And so, this is a gradual change. What will happen is as follows. It's pretty basic. So what will happen is you have this idea. We want to appeal to the fact that we want rain. Well, we want rain. So what do we do? Well, we have to try to connect to the spirits that are connected to the rain. And so you have this idea of, well, maybe there are spirits connected to water, right? You also have this idea like, oh, we need to be warm. We need to be able to bring warmth to ourselves. And of course, appealing to spirits related to fire. And you can see how this works. Animistic beliefs then also extend to various objects. They give trees actual indwelling spirits, where eventually many were believed to be gods, especially within Germanic and Norse traditions. The jinn were said to haunt trees in early Arabic traditions, while Greeks and Romans had dryads, right? And India had yakshis and yakshas, right? Mountains were believed to have, they ascended to the clouds. Their inclines appeared to move from earth into heaven. So almost every religion in the world has at least one sacred mountain or more, acting as monolithic thresholds, liminal places of transition, metaphors of power, great spirits in stone, or even homes for the gods, like Mount Olympus, for example, whether they are foundations for celestial cities or mythic paradises. We see these holy mountains. Because of their prominence topographically, mountains become connected to regional identities, with the belief that each mountain represented the group of people living along its base. Eventually, many mountains were not only viewed as actually embodying the spirit, but became more specified, gaining a specific name and understood to actually be a god or a goddess. Right? So we have this. But as this process of categorization in connection to the natural world occurred, with more spirits receiving specialized associations, many also were understood as occupying a general category of spirits residing within the natural world, eventually becoming known as elementals, which are often viewed as lower type of nature spirits, lower in the sense that they are more intertwined with the natural world as opposed to being more outside of it. Um, they are believed to exist as in some cases, connected to the life force of all things. How that relates, we'll talk about shortly. They are said to, of course, exist specifically within the four elements of earth, air, fire, and water, connected to planets and stars and the signs of the zodiac, right? And the hours of day and night. Eventually, so you have this gradual evolution, right? So again, I want to bring up a few things, and then we're going to go forward and give a whole bunch of examples, probably more than you want. Here we go. Um, so you basically have early humanity. And early humanity, we have very short lifespans, very short lifespans. So we're living to be 15, 20, 25 years of age. It's not too good, right? Especially during the Paleolithic era. And so our amount of lifetime is not only short, but also the transmission of knowledge. And so, since we're living such short lives, we're not able to give much information to the succeeding generations. I'm not saying that we're not brilliant, but we're a little bit more limited. And so, what we have is our natural surroundings. Nature around us to figure things out. During the Paleolithic era, we go from place to place because we're looking for, well, food and clean water, or at least just water. We're looking for to be able to secure vegetative materials, plants to have, fruits, nuts, berries, whatever it may be. We're looking for places to hunt. And so we're going to be migrating from place to place to place. That's just simply what we do. Well, how do we know when to migrate? Well, you see, this is where we start bringing in what are known as the sky elementals. And so the belief is that the stars in the sky have spirit in them, and it's connected to the earth. These spirits in the sky, the moon, the stars, Venus, they have spirit. And so the spirits tell us when we need to move. Of course, you have something a little bit going on where you have the earth will, of course, move to different places. It will be, of course, in one place will be the equinox, and then go forward it'll be the solstice, equinox, solstice, equinox again, and as it goes back and forth, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, what happens is the stars change in configuration. So what they do is they're thinking, hey, these sky elementals, they attribute it in some cases to the air, but also in some cases to the earth with the air working together, coordinating one another. Right? That energy, those spirits, whatever it may be, of the air, of the skies above, are connecting to that which is the earth, and there's a reciprocal kind of relationship going on, right? And this relationship goes that, hey, it looks like it is time. Look at the stars. It looks like it's going to get a whole lot warmer. So we're going to go to where plants are growing during the spring and summer period of time because the stars themselves are telling us this. So these spirits are telling us, giving this information. And so we're going to go to our place to settle, our little cave and a little settlement site. Humanity is interesting. We always go back to the same campsites year after year after year. Obviously, these groups are kept very small. So if you get past 20, 25 people, they split because there's only so many food resources to go along. So what they will do is that they will go, okay, well, we're going to go to our spring camp. We're going to go to our summer camp. Woohoo! Without all the fun, right? And then, of course, they'll take a look at the stars at night and going, oh no, it's time for us to move because the animals are moving, the plants, it's heading towards colder times, fall and winter and so forth. So this is the first kind of vague idea that there's some kind of connection out there, that there are elements involved and that this is connected to the realm of spirit. They say, well, this kind of relationship must be working because it looks like that the moon uh, in the sky connects to the water and somehow because look, the tides are moving. For heaven's sakes, what's going on there? So not only are the stars believed or perceived to actually changing the weather, right? They're believed to changing the weather because the star configurations in the sky change at certain times, seasons. They believe, well, therefore, they must connect to the changing seasons. But they see that. So they go, but what we're going to do is we're going to try to manipulate them or try to beg them, please, because things go wrong. In early humanity, everything goes wrong. It's like, hey, wait a second. The stars are telling us it's going to be warming up. It's still cold. It's freezing. We better do something, right? So we better do something in order to move it up a little bit. And so what they'll do is they figure, well, they believe that life feeds upon life. It's a typical idea. So they have to feed it something living. They keep it strong to make it sure it does what it wants to do. This is part of ancient religion. It's part of also religions that move even into the contemporary times. The idea that, hey, life does, for example, none of you had a bowl of rocks. Most of you, had something that had plant consistency or meat consistency, but nobody's sitting there chewing on pebbles. Although minerals can be good for you, you get my point. So they figure, well, if we eat life, and looks like the animals eat life, the grass and so forth, so therefore the gods, not gods at this point, the spirit world needs to feed. It needs to feed. So what they will do is they'll do offerings, sacrifices. And those sacrifices will vary. There'll be plant sacrifices because, there it is. And then eventually they will have, of course, animal sacrifices too. And if things are really bad, we move on to up the ante a little bit to human sacrifice. The idea is that you're supposed to offer your best to satisfy these spirits. So these spirits, these elementals, are looked at as not only existing, but they need to be fed. They need to, so you got to make sure you do that. And if you feed them right, guess what? Hey, everything, the machinery of the universe will start working again. Okay, look, the seasons are working again. It's going along. It's going, look, now it's getting warmer now. It must be because we did those various plant and animal sacrifices, and now the elementals are fed and they're feeling better. Is this you guys getting this? So this is ancient religion. I'm kind of simplifying a little bit, but you get the idea. So you're having this concept there, and it starts to. So you have this idea of course, there's air, of course, with fire. It's pretty obvious that you take a look and going, the spirit behind liquidy water, whatever's in it, it's got to be a little different than what's the spirit within that fire, the flames, right? And then you think, well, and it's got to be different from what is in the earth, right? The earth is different. And it's got to be, and of course, what's in the trees, right? And so it's got to be different there. So they start thinking, there's got to be differences: earth, air, fire, and water. And before you think this is a Western idea, it's not. What I find is so interesting is it's not a Western idea. I don't know where we get this, but we have within East Asia, within Japan and China, you don't have air as an elemental, but you have excuse me, you have earth and fire and water, and then oftentimes it will be tin or wood, something metal. but it'll have three out of the four elements there. In India, we take a look at Indian iconography and the history of India. It is in India earth, air, fire, water. It is within Mesopotamia earth, air, fire, water. It is within Egypt earth, air, fire, water. Indo-Europeans earth, air, fire, water. Ooh, we came upon not completely universal, but what I really fascinated with is I was doing studies in Mesoamerica and looking at the Mayans and the Toltecs and the Aztecs, and guess what? I don't know how they have earth, air, fire, water. So why? Is it because there's a universal truth? No, it's just a matter of deduction. You know, the spirits in this wet stuff is not going to be the same within the fire stuff, and it's not going to be the same in the ground stuff, and it's not going to be the same in the wind stuff. It's deduction. So, humanity, they're trying to survive the best they can. And they're thinking the spirits are in all these things. So they're going to try to have some kind of relationship. So this categorization idea of elementals does come early. And we see this in evidence within religions all around the world. And I'll give you some examples a little bit later on. This is helpful. So you see how these ideas are gradually evolving, right, over a period of time. And so you're going to have this idea of elementals deeply intertwined. Okay, so what will happen from here? Eventually, you're going to have more categorization. Yeah, I'm ignoring my notes as usual. What we're going to have is that you have earth, air, fire, water, and then they go, you know what? This is too general. As humanity's starting to live a little longer, hey, we made it to 30, as we get to the Neolithic era. They're accumulating a little bit more knowledge, and they're realizing, maybe these elements can be more, we can name them. so maybe so you have elements connected to water. Maybe there should be a different name for the element of water that's connected to rain, the element of water that's connected to a pond, a stream, right? And so maybe there's a different kind of spirit that's connected to the pond, and a different kind of spirit that's connected to the ocean, a different kind of spirit that's connected to a spring, a different kind of, and so within the element of water, you're going to have now different kinds of spirits being perceived to be part of those aspects because people are living longer and they're going, yeah, maybe, it's the old idea, specific prayer gets more done, right? It's supposed to pray in general for, hey, help me water spirits. It is, help me water spirit connected to the spring. The spring that's near, and make sure we want it to be nice and clean for us and not to dry out. So the same thing, of course, goes when it comes to various trees, right? So you're going to have within forests, glens, and the earth, you're going to have various places that will be then specifically noted as having individual spirits that are under the earth context, but trees, and of course, trees and other rocks and so forth, mountains, those would be connected to earth spirits. So trees are a big deal for ancient humanity. And so they're believed to have the special life force in them. It's not that they didn't see it. See, what happens is this. Many of you who are watching today have seen a lightning strike a tree. It happens all the time. A lot of oak trees for some reason. If you observe, you realize that everything's kind of burrowed under, and you look down into the stump. It's like, wow, where is this? Remember ancient humanity, we're not living that long. So we haven't figured out. But what they see is it looks like some energy is coming from heaven, from the sky above, and it's going into the tree and it's going to the earth below. Or maybe the other direction up. Maybe, right? It's physics majors are all things. So the point of the matter is that there's this energy connecting all these things. So they're thinking, guess what? It looks like this tree, the spirit of the tree is connected to the sky, the land, and the underworld. And so therefore it's privy to special wisdom and knowledge of all the three realms. We see the three realm idea within the Mayans and Aztecs, Toltecs. We see this, of course, in art storm, right? We see this uh, in Norse mythology, right? We see a three-story universe in Semitic stories. We see a three-story universe also within Korean and Chinese and again another universal. Before we figure out, hey, the world's around and so forth. What will happen is that therefore the trees are connected with so these trees are wisdom trees. The spirit of that particular tree is unusually wise. For some reason, also when it comes to mountains, maybe it's going up to the mountain air. It gets really thin up there. Mountains are connected to epiphanies. So the spirit of the mountain gives you an epiphany. Let's give a Judeo-Christian example of that. You guys ever heard of Mount Sinai? And Moses goes up to Mount Sinai. Well, yeah, there's an epiphany there, right? 10 Commandments, yada yada. Oh, what about Jesus and the Mount of Transfiguration, right? Goes up there and so of course talks to these Old Testament figures. Or what about the Mount of Olives, right? And you're going to see this Islam, Mount Hira, right? So you see this in Judaism, Christianity, Islam. This is so mountains are connected to epiphanies, but we see this idea also within various indigenous uh, societies all around the world. And once again, you're on the mountaintop. There must be something going on. So the spirit within the mountain must be special. So you're going to start having specialty elementals. But what I'm trying to go on is they're going to give them all names now. Maybe not right away in the Neolithic era, with the Chalcolithic. All of a sudden, they're going to give them names. That's great. It's good to have a name, right? But then they're going to start creating hierarchies. They're going to say, well, there is this head elemental, uh, and then they have little mini elementals that are underneath them. Like so you got to basically talk to the boss, the person in charge, the head elemental, and then he distributes what it is to the other elementals underneath there. So you're going to have these hierarchies that start to grow. We see that. We'll talk about this in various religions, ancient religions around the world, where they're at the state where we're not sure if the head elemental is yet completely understood as a god or a goddess, or it's still just kind of a head elemental. And we're going to see this especially in Mesopotamian belief systems, where it's kind of like we're not sure, we can't call it. Same thing with the Luvians, right? And the same thing with the Hittites. So you're going to see this situation. So and so that's going to happen there too. So you're going to have this evolution where elementals will then have kind of a boss. Eventually, the head elemental will rise up and become a god or a goddess. And so you're going to have now hierarchies. So by the time we get to the Chalcolithic and moving on age, we're going to have the beginning of hierarchical belief systems where you're going to have the head of these various elemental groups and so forth and so on. But not always, but often. And then, of course, things will change from there, where you get into the monotheistic ones. And what do you do with these multiple gods or these previous elementals? You make them into, like, for example, angels and then saints and so forth. So, bigger picture. So, hope you guys are having fun, right? Well, I skipped a lot of pages there. So, okay, good. So, what happens now is that elementals, um, they are catching up to or going to where I was before. The task of the elementals and the elemental kingdom is to look after the natural world. Elementals are also the ones that were believed responsible for therapeutic effects. That there's something that you can sense them, and when you're with them, they do, when you're amongst them, give you energy. They help restore your body, to heal you. So these elementals are connected to healing. We'll go into that in a little bit. Elemental spirits possess then supernatural powers. They are typically invisible to humans, but they also, because they are metaphysical, they are not they do harm as well. So they do cause earthquakes and floods and gales and thunderstorms and wildfires. But also they create, they sustain, and they renew life on Earth. Obviously, with a belief in spirits residing within nature, many will try to communicate with them, especially to better their chances for survival by, gaining success as we talked about in the hunt, protection from wild animals or a nearby tribe, adequate food supply, and good weather. With someone amongst this group chosen to act as an intermediary. So let's go to the first image. This is a female shaman. It's a modern depiction, but I thought we need to see some image here as I go through this. So the person who is chosen to interact with these elementals are, of course, known as a shaman. According to Mircea Eliade, a very famous scholar, she says shamanism encompasses the premise that shamans are intermediaries or messengers between the human world and the spirit world. Shamans are said to treat ailments and illnesses by mending the soul. They're alleviating traumas affecting the soul and spirit, restores the physical body of the individual to balance and to wholeness. Uh, they have a power that is seen to be connect with these particular elementals. The shaman then enters into these supernatural realms or dimensions to obtain solutions to problems, especially problems that are afflicting the community. They may visit other worlds and dimensions to bring guidance to misguided souls and so forth. However, I want to bring up another idea, and that is David Abram. So we'll see my face a little bit now. David Abram, however, articulates a less supernatural and much more ecological understanding of the shaman's role than Eliade. Drawing upon his own field of research in Indonesia and Nepal and the Americas, Abrams suggests that in animistic cultures, the shaman functions primarily as an intermediary between the human community and the more than human community of active agencies, that being the local animals, plants, and landforms, mountains, rivers, forests, winds, weather patterns, all which are felt to have their specific sentience. Hence, the shaman's ability to heal individuals is not simply a situation where he has these powers uh, given to him, but what happens is that it is a byproduct, a natural byproduct of him working within the natural realm with the elementals, and so balancing nature with the human community. And through this reciprocity between the two, this collective of animate beings enables us, because we're all kind of connected together, enables us all to heal. I think it's kind of beautiful. So you have this larger notion, right, of connectiveness. So therefore, the shaman, he is the healer, is nature, and the shaman is the channel through which nature heals us and the community. In time, as I said, these elementals were divided up, usually sky, fire, water, earth, or air. Air and sky will come together. So let's talk about some earth elementals. I just decided to have a little fun and mention some elementals that connect to the modern day, and then we'll go back into time. How's that? So I want you to understand uh, elementals in the current era, or well, we'll talk about some ancient ones too, but there's still some belief in some of these. For example, of course, the earth elementals. These are the ones who live in caves and in deep underground regions. They're working with precious metals. We'll be talking about later on uh, those known as the Idaean dactyls of Crete and Anatolia. And we'll be also talking about the torch-bearing Lampides. These are the nymphs of the underworld, so we'll be talking about that. But you also have some others. For example, the Okobanau are the hills of Wales. These are very gnome-like creatures who are known to help miners. They're very ugly, but they're very friendly. So they're able to find the richest vein of gold. By the way, they're also very sensitive. So I'm sorry if I offended a Coblenau out there in Wales. You're all beautiful. Okay. You also have the Corrigan of Brittany. Once again, while these are believed in ancient times, they're still local lore, and people still tell stories and have beliefs. They're web-footed. They're the guardians by the standing stones, for example, in Brittany. They also are known to dance around fountains. They are small dwarves, but sometimes they're identified as fairies. This is another earth spirit. I'm going through earth spirits here. Although, however, in some cases, they are siren-like female fairies. And in this case, they connect not only to the earth, but to the water as well. We're going to find some of these spirits that kind of bridge areas. You have the Manvaki of Finland. These are earth spirits. The Manvaki, these are the forest Vaki. They are connected to the god of the spirits. So you have all these Vaki spirits, but there's still a head god. Did we not talk about that you're going to have these hierarchies created, that there will be some kind of lead animistic or god or goddess that's in charge of a whole bunch of them who are animistic. Anyway, Tapio, by the way, is the name of the top forest spirit. In fact, he is the personification of the forest. One interesting thing about Finnish folklore, a person, by the way, by the name of J.R. Tolkien, was fascinated with Finnish folklore. A lot of that gets intertwined in his mythology of Middle Earth. Anyway, the Valkyrie, this is also known as a supernatural power that resides in everything. And so there's so you're going, ooh, so it is animism, but there's a feeling, a little bit of pantheism here too. Devaki, so much like you guys ever heard of mana? Mana, this is the Melanesia, Polynesian cultural idea of the same idea that there's this energy, the supernatural force that permeates the universe. And so the Finns have the same thing. One thing about the Finns, they are not Indo-Europeans. They are there before the Indo-Europeans swept over that region. They are truly an ancient people. Their language proves it. And their folklore is so fascinating because it is completely unlike that of their neighbors. So it has a lot of ways, a lot more in common with Polynesia than it does in nearby Indo-Europeans, and this idea of this life force and certain other ideas too. But anyway, moving on, another Earth force. Sorry, no, stuck on that. Animistic elementals are the Karzalek of Poland. They live in mines, and they don't mind. And they're guardians of gems and crystals and precious metals. They protect miners, as in the digging miners. I'm sure they protect children too. They help these miners if they get lost in the caves, and people still in Poland today believe in them, especially those who are working underground with various ores. They are known to lead those to some precious veins of ore, just like the Welsh ones do. But by the way, they don't like evil people. If you are a bad person, don't go into a mine with a Karzalek, because what they're going to do is a few things. First of all, if you are near a place where you can fall forever, they will push you off. You will If you're walking in an area where it seems to be kind of precarious when it comes to safety, the mine's going to collapse, and they'll even throw rocks at you. That's the least they can do, right? Mention the other two. Oh well, okay. Well, that's really bad, right? Um, do you also have the Erlutate? These are of Italy. They're northern Italian, specifically connected to the forest. They wear these beautiful red mantles. They're very small. They're very gentle earth spirits, they are said. And they are said to have webbed feet, actually goose-like feet, but they can't swim. So they are earth elementals. um, and they somehow, for some reason, they love ripe pears. So beware, they may be after your pears. And once again, this is part of Italian folklore, and many still believe in these elementals today. You have the eels, spelled Illeles, but it's pronounced eels. This is of Iceland. These are other earth spirits. They're troll-like, but they're sometimes called elves. And what they do is they lure humans into the darkness at night, where they'll do either one of two things. They'll either breed with you or they'll suffocate you. So you got your choice there. They wear gray clothes. Their hair is black, and they live in these mounds. And they are very much believed today in Iceland, which the spirits, in many ways, are believed to occupy a parallel world and are recognized as such. Another earth spirits are called the Gandharvas of India. They're connected with the Yakshas, which we'll talk about later. They're divine musicians. They're also warriors, and they in Hindu and Buddhist beliefs, they are of the lowest level of the devas in the cosmology. They're further down, but they're still important. You have the Gans. Those are the Apache tribes, for example. These are earth spirits, mountain spirits, who are protectors and teachers of the Apache. In fact, they do a special Gan dance. This is a ceremonial dance. They do the performance. They wear these masks and ceremonial crowns, and as they dance, they connect to these elementals, and these elementals are believed to possess them. So and be part of them, and then act through them. We're going to see this, also amongst other groups of indigenous peoples of the Americas. For example, you have the Hopi too, and their elementals are called the Kachina, and so you have what are called Kachina dolls. And certain Kachinas connect to the earth, certain Kachinas connect to the sky, the water, and the air. And once again, they do dances, and you have connections there. But the cool part is they have Kachina dolls that typically, traditionally, the uncle makes for their nieces, and they carve them out, and it's supposed to kind of almost like uh, to teach them all about animism. So indigenous peoples all around the Americas have this idea of elementals in the different areas, quadrants, and of course, the powers connected to that. The earth elemental are the Mu of Papua New Guinea. They're benevolent as well as malevolent. Sometimes it could be connected to ancestors or nature. You have the Hantu, Hutan. This is of the Malay Peninsula. These are evil spirits, ghosts dwelling in the forest. Watch out for them. You have the Bela of Indonesia. They are both good and bad elements. I mean, it goes on. You have the Patu Parish of the Maori in New Zealand. It's interesting. These spirits of the earth are connected. They're pale skinned. They're blonde or red hair, which is very very odd. They're not tattooed, and they're nocturnal. They only show up at night or on misty days. And if you see them and you're looking at them, they can even mist themselves. They disappear in the mist. They go, and they go away. They eat raw food. So, and oh, by the way, and they stay away from fire. They don't want to be seen. You do have the famous or infamous, I'll say this, oak men of the British Isles, uh, said to be squat, dwarfish, with red toadstool caps. Many people say that much of this is made up, but it does derive from a 17th century poem on fairies in connection to oaks, and that is true. There's the oak fairy, and so these are again our earth elementals. Yeah, the Silvani of Italian forests, connected to Sylvanus, the Roman deity of the woods. They delight in forests growing wildly. This next earth element, they're called the Skogsa, the Skogsa of Sweden. The Skogsa, they are small, beautiful women, and they're very friendly, but they try to keep their posterior hidden because they do have a tail and they also have a hollow back. Or they have back there skin that looks like tree bark. Men can be enticed to follow them into the forest, but if they do, they're not going to return. Any man who has relations with a Skolsra and live, they, as a result, become very introverted. So they're extroverts before, they're very introverted. They go, oh no, oh yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, Skrog has been with the Skolsra. Yeah, looks like that. I'm sorry, no longer brave. She gives good luck to hunters, and bad luck to hunters who betray her, so beware. You have Olda, the Olda of Lapland, which is connected to those of Sweden. They're pretty close, the same beautiful women on the underground that have a tail that they always try to hide. You have, of course, the Manitou, the Algonquin tribe of Canada, the forests of Canada. You have those known as specifically the Ashi Manateo, which is the good spirits, the Otse Manateo, which is the bad spirits. However, which is interesting with this one, is Manitou refers to these forest creatures, but Manitou also refers to spirits in general. But the Algonquin, I can't talk. Algonquin tribe, what happens is that they believe that Manitou is also connected to a life force within everything. So there's everything is permeated by this life force. So everything is connected, and so they use them to see the future. They could change the weather, vision quests. In fact, let's move on to air elementals. The Algonquin tribe also has sky elementals, and these are known as star folk of the air, and they're celestial beings that started life here. I mean, they created life here, and they revealed themselves through dreams and visions. But they are also believed to be ascended ancestors too. So even though they come from somewhere else, if you die, you get to be part of them, which is kind of cool. You have the Atua Polynesian, which of course connected to the sky as well. You got the Spriggans of Cornwall, who are also known to be who are connected to the air. They cause whirlwinds. They're basically very grumpy old men, at least in body. However, they have huge childlike heads. And they're found in old ruins, and often with buried treasures, and often not in a good mood. So I like this one. The Peri, the Peri of Persia. They are not to be confused with the jinn. They are winged creatures. They're very beautiful. They're good for they're good luck. They used to be not good luck, but now they are. But they how you feed them is they dine on perfume and other good scents. So yeah, so which is kind of nice, right? So if you are you're put the good scent in the air, this is a good thing. It's a good incentive. I'm here all night. Okay. You've been warned. So you have, and of course, you also have water elementals, which are divided usually between those of the sea and those of fresh water. Saltwater elementals include mermaids and mermen, seal people, sirens of various kinds, the Celtes of Western Europe, right? The Daoine Mara, the Finn folk of Scotland, the Marrows of Ireland, the Nereides of Greece, the Hafrui of Scandinavia, the Mal de Mer of Brittany, the Groch Avor, those are Britain mermaids. Freshwater elementals lived in rivers, lakes, pools, fountains. They include nixies and kelpies and in English rivers, dracs in the rivers of France, Clud in Belgium, Lamnik in the Basque lands, Hatats of Armenia, the Judy of Macedonia, the Katshad of Lapland, the Nok of Estonia, the bashful Nok, who appeared only at dusk and dawn in Sweden. I mean, you know. Then, of course, you have the fire elementals. The salamander, much prized as spirit helper by various, is in there. You have the jinn, Persian lore and Arabic lore. So the jinn are included. We'll talk about them in a few moments. Yeah, the Akumi of Japan. These are fire spirits. The Draks or Drakmen of Western Europe. You have the Mujara of Egypt, the Tensich of the Scottish Hebrides, the Spunkies of Southwest England. I mean, we see them. We see all these different kinds of connected to the element. Excuse me, fire. So we go. So here we go. I think I demonstrated beyond a reasonable doubt. There are elements everywhere, but they seem to be sectioned off in groups. Do you guys see it yet? Slightly. Okay. I can go like 3 times longer if you want, but I think I got you the idea. So let's move on. So the next bit here is pantheism. Let's go to the next image. So pantheism. Now, eventually, many cultures and societies that were animistic become pantheistic as well. Much to the surprise of many, animism is not the same as pantheism, although the two are sometimes confused. Some religions are both pantheistic and animistic. One of the main differences is that while animists believe everything to be spiritual in nature, again, while animists believe everything to be spiritual in nature, they do not necessarily see the spiritual nature of everything in existence as being united. It's not a united front. Got it? The way that pantheists do. So the various elementals, from a animistic standpoint, sometimes they don't get along. They fight. There's no oneness there. All right, right. We see that a lot, even when it gets into the Greco-Roman mythology, right? So they're not pantheistic. As a result, animism puts more emphasis on the uniqueness of each individual soul. In pantheism, everything shares the same spiritual essence rather than having distinct spirits and or souls. So as we went through this review of various kinds of earth, air, fire, water, we saw in some cases that they're animistic. We saw in other cases that there seemed to be moving towards a pantheism, right? And we see that also, of course, within Shintoism with the idea of the kami. Now, the first instances, however, of pantheistic thought does not actually fully happen, at least recognized, until the ancient Greeks, especially the mystery cult known as Orphism, where Pan, the all, is made a cognate with the creator god Phanes. Phanes, of course, represents the universe. And with Zeus after the swallowing of Phanes. According to one of the creation myths, Kronos, time, created the silver egg of the universe, and out of this egg burst the firstborn, Phanes. Phanes was a Uroboric male female deity of light and goodness, whose name means to bring light to shine, a firstborn god of light who emerges from a void or a watery abyss and gives birth to the universe. But everything, all is ultimately one. Everything ultimately is one. So that's an important part. Okay, so we move on. In the early stages, the next image. In the early stages of Sumerian culture, the gods and goddesses who formed groups were almost, as I said before, indistinguishable from demons. They were vaguely defined and had changing shapes. When attempts were made to depict them, they were represented in many varying forms. Some were winged bulls or lions with human heads. Others had even more remarkable composite forms. The Dragon of Babylon, for instance, which we're seeing here, which was portrayed on walls of temples, had a serpent's head, a body covered with scales, the forelegs of a lion, hind legs of an eagle, and a long, wriggling serpentine tail. And so you have. So what happens is that Mesopotamian religion seems to be kind of between animism and moving into a hierarchy, kind of caught in between. The Sumerian gods never lost their connection with the early spirit groups. They continued to be represented by their attendants. So we talked about the formation, moving from the various animistic spirits to having a lead god or goddess in charge of these animistic spirits. And then later on, of course, some of these spirits will be promoted to that which is a god uh, or goddess. But the point is that in Sumerian religion, we still have them in this earlier demonic form or spirit, animistic spirit form. In And so these continue to be represented by their attendants who executed a deity's stern and vengeful decrees. So when a Sumerian god is angry, they just call the elementals at you. In one of the Babylonian charms, the demons are referred to as the spleen of the gods, the symbols of their wrathful emotions and vengeful desires. Bel and Lel, the air and earth god, were served by the demons of disease, the beloved, quote, beloved sons of Bel, which issued from the underworld to attack mankind. Next image. Nergal, the sulky and ill-tempered lord of death and destruction, who never lost his demonic character, swept over the land, followed by the spirits of pestilence, sunstroke, weariness, and destruction. Anu, the sky god, had spawned at creation the demons of cold and rain and darkness. Next image. Even Ea and his consort, Damkina, seen here, were served by groups of devils and giants which preyed upon humanity in bleak and desolate places when, of course, night fell. In the ocean home of Ea were bred the seven evil spirits of Tempest, of the gaping dragon, the leopard which preyed upon children, the great beast, the terrible serpent, and so on. So, possessing powers greater than that of humans, many gods were associated with astral phenomena, as the sun, moon, and stars. Others with the forces of nature, such as wind and fresh and ocean waters. Yet others with real animals, lion, bulls, wild oxen, and so forth. The imagined creatures, such as the fire-spitting dragons. In the Sumerian hymn, Enlil and the Ekur, the god Enlil is described as controlling and animating nature. It says, without the great mountain Enlil, oh, you can see me if you want. Okay, so within the great mountain Enlil, so Enlil is represented as a great mountain. The carp would not come straight up from the sea. They would not dart about. The sea would not produce all its heavy treasure. No freshwater fish would lay eggs in the reed beds. No bird of the sky would build nests in the spacious lands. In the sky, the thick clouds would not open their mouths. On the fields, dappled grain would not fill the arable land. Vegetation would not grow lushly on the plain. In the gardens, the spreading tree of the mountain would not yield fruit. And so you have this interesting idea where, yeah, you have a God that seems to be and now in charge, but it is the moving through the elementals in this sense, and so everything is all connected, as you can see. Next image, the jinn of Arabia and East Africa. The name means to hide or to conceal, or more literally, the beings that are concealed from the senses were originally pagan nature deities who gradually became marginalized as other deities of greater importance took over. Another nature spirit was a certain Dat Madin, she of the wild goats and she of the sanctuary, who was an Arab Himrite goddess. Dot Bottom was a nature goddess of the oasis and was worshipped at tree circle pools throughout the region of ancient Yemen, Somalia, and Ethiopia. So then you had the Hittites and Alluvians. Next image. Then you have the Inarwantes. These are a group of Hittite deities. In the Alluvian, they are known as Anarumezeni. They originated from the Hittite goddess Inara, or his alluvian equivalent by the name of Anari. From their origins in the patron god Inara long ago, the Inarwantes took over their task as earth-bound protector deities. Like many groups of deities created by the duplication of a deity, the Enerwantes also have demonic traits. Um, the Enerwantes are also the company of a Luvian god by the name of Santa. So, yeah, Santa, who is who is considered a god connected to death, right? They are described as deities who wear bloody clothes, have tied up the sashes of the mountain peoples, girded daggers, and held taut bows and arrows. And so, next image. You also have those known as Marwanji. These are also these more of these spirits. These are the also known as the seven gods. They received atonement sacrifices to end a plague in the Hittite army. So they're again connected to plagues and stopping plagues. And of course, finally, next image, you have oh, well, okay, the Elantes deities so it looks like we moved on to the Greek and Roman deities of Asia Minor, and what you're looking at right here, these are the Idaean dactyls. So nature spirits were worshipped by the Greeks and Romans, and they did believe that spirits inhabited every glen and pool and even the air. In Asia Minor, you have those known as the dactyls, seen here. These spirits were originally earth elementals and not only considered agents of magic, but also of musical notes and metalworking, especially the forging of iron. According to Pausanias, just below Mount Ida on Crete, let's go to the next image. Just below Mount Ida on Crete, the Idaean dactyls protected baby Zeus from the devouring father Kronos after Rhea gave birth to him. The Idaean dactyls at the Mount Ida in Asia Minor, which is another Mount Ida, were connected to the Great Mother, Adrastea, who was in turn also closely related to the goddess Rhea as well as the Phrygian Cybele. The goddess Rhea then was associated with both the mountains on Crete and in the Troad, with a legacy that can be traced back all the way back to the Minoans. According to Strabo, both the Curetes and the Corybantes were the offspring of the Idaean dactyls, who originated from the Mount Ida in the Troad. In some cases, the Curetes were viewed as identical to the Idaean dactyls and were known for protecting Leto from Hera as she gave birth to Artemis and Apollo at Ephesus, performing the very same protective task as the Idaean dactyls on Crete did in regards to Zeus. In fact, the priest of Artemis of the Ephesians will become known also as the Curetes and will be responsible for reenacting the role of these guardian spirits every year in the Ortygia Gardens, where Leto was said to have given birth to the twins, according to Ephesian tradition. Again, in relation to Ephesus, Clement of Alexandria, next image, directly connects the Idaean dactyls with the invention of the Ephesian letters, some of them seen right here, believed to be one of the most powerful magical word combinations throughout the Mediterranean antiquity, and inclusive of the word Domenios, which also happens to be one of the personal names of the Idaean dactyls. So these are these earth spirits there. Let's go to the next image. You also have the Chalbates, who are legendary people who lived in Cappadocia and Pontus along the Black Sea. And they are also known as people of the Black Sea who trade in iron. These are iron workers. And stay with this image. We also have the Telchines. The Telchines were a group of elemental spirits believed to have originated from the island of Crete, but later spread to Cyprus and Rhodes, with their parents as either Pontus and Gaia or Tartarus and Nemesis. So, well, as a dad, they were certainly odd looking when making an appearance. Now, I don't see one of their prominent appearances on this, which is rather disappointing. I do see some of them, so I'll go, but yeah, I see one of them. So the one that's most like it is like the fish one that you see right there with the fish bottom. So let's go to me. So they do have flippers and sometimes tails instead of flippers instead of hands. Oftentimes they do also have the heads of dogs. The Telchines were described to have stings, and so they have stingers. They're often called the fish children. The Telchines were ministers of the gods. They were also, like the Idaean dactyls, they were viewed as wizards, uh, they're viewed as daemons. They're also viewed as cultivators of the soil. They, again, are earth elementals. As elementals, they have the power to bring on hail, rain, and snow, and to assume any form that they pleased. They further produced a substance that is poisonous to all living things. So once again, you got to watch out for that stinger. The Telchines were said to have invented useful arts and institutions, which were very useful to humanity, and to have made images of the gods. In fact, they were excellent metallurgists. For example, they're the ones who made Poseidon's trident. They also made the sickle for Kronos, and they oftentimes worked with Hephaestus. So I find this all pretty interesting. So what we're going to do is I want to move on to nymphs and talk about them for a little bit. So let's go to the next image because we do have an image here of a Telchides. And there we go. And you can see these are the, and now let's go to the next image. This is actually doing Hermes. Okay. Oh, this is a little blurry, so we'll go to the next image. There we go. That's better. Greek and Roman nymphs. So here we go. Because my field specifically is connected to Greek and Roman ideas, I thought maybe this would be I want to illustrate and understand elementals through this guise. Okay, so nymphs were female spirits of the natural world. Uh, they are always female. You don't have male nymphs. They are minor goddesses of the forests, rivers, springs, meadows, mountains, and seas. They were the crafters of nature's wild beauty, from the growing of trees and flowers and shrubs to nurture of wild animals and birds, and the formation of grottos, springs, brooks, and wetlands. Homer describes them as presiding over game. Oftentimes, Homer, he said, they accompany Artemis, and in fact, they oftentimes dance with her, weaving in their grottos purple garments and kindly watching over the fate of mortals. All nymphs, whose number, next image, whose number is almost infinite, may be divided into various classes, especially the first class. The first class embraces those who must be regarded as a kind of inferior divinity, recognized in the worship of nature. The second class we're not going to be talking about today. The second class of nymphs are personification of tribes, races, states, as in those kind of contexts. But we're going to be focusing on the first kind because that connects more to elementals. The early Greeks saw in all the phenomena of ordinary nature some manifestation of the deity, so and so and so you have these powers within nature, and they became, as I mentioned before, personified. And what I want to do, this is fun for me, and so let's look at me for a few seconds. I want to read you a poem, a Orphic poem on nymphs that just says it all in style. Here we go. My tiki is not quite fitting very well with that with my theme there, but there you have it. Orphic Hymn 51. We're going through this. It comes from the 3rd century BCE to the 2nd century CE. It goes as follows. It says, to the nymphi, fumigation from aromatics. So this is talking about the fact that they smell good. The nymphs around, smell the air, is a good thing. Aromatics, nymphi, who from Oceanus fame derived your birth, who dwell in liquid caverns of the earth, nurses of Bacchus, secret coursing powers, cruciferous goddesses who nourish flowers. So they are the nurturers. So I want to bring this up. We see this all throughout the world within elementals, and we see this even within elementals of India, and that is they are connected to the life force of plants. They enable the flowers to bloom. They enable plants to grow. They enable them to thrive. And of course, when the plant dies, they sometimes die with them. So they're connected to the energy of life. And of course, you have the same idea. The Egyptians have Isis, who connects to this life force, but this is, of course, a goddess, and she doesn't die. Of course, her husband does. But so they're connected to these vital elements. Okay. Earthly rejoicing, who in meadows dwell, and caves and dens, whose depths extend to hell. Well, holy oblique, who swiftly soar through the air, fountains and dews, and winding streams your care, seen and unseen, who joy with wandering wide, and gentle course through flowery vales to glide. So they are connected to the realm of the water. They are connected to the realm of the land. They are connected to the realm of the air, right? With Pan exalting on the mountain's height, inspired and stridulous, whom woods delight. Nymphae, odorous, robed in white, and sometimes they are, you'll see in images, sometimes wearing robes, and oftentimes they are white robes, whose streams exhale, and the breeze refreshing, and the balming gale, with goats and pastures pleased, and beasts of prey, nurses of fruits, there it goes again, nurses of fruits, unconscious of decay, right? Um, and so, and to cattle kind, sportive through ocean wandering, unconfined, O Niceties, insane, whom oaks delight, lovers of spring, Pannonian virgins bright. What's referring to here is that these nymphs are able to give you insight, but this insight oftentimes makes you a little insane, a madness, right? And to mankind abundant favors bear, propitious listen to your suppliant's voice. Come and to these rites and rejoice. Give plenteous seasons and sufficient wealth, and pour in lasting streams continued health. So you see, so much is communicated here. Next image. The nymphs were deemed as incredibly beautiful and often reflected the element they represented. Next image. Philostratus the elder, in his Imaginings, while describing an ancient Greek painting, says as follows. He says, here are the nymphae in a group, but do you look at them by classes? Some are Naiades, the water nymphs. These are who are shaking drops of dew from their hair, and the lean slenderness of the Bucali, these are pastoral nymphs, in no white less beautiful than dew, and the Anthosi have hair that resembles hyacinth flowers. So you have, these are really beautiful, having flower-like hair and so forth. A certain Christina Smith, scholar, has this to say about nymphs. As many know, she says, due to the etymological descent of the Greek nymphs, they possessed a sensual and even overtly sexual aura, which was specific to their own divine species, save for one exceptionally stimulating and steamy famous goddess Aphrodite, she says. Since ancient and Greek Roman societies often treasured modesty and chastity, it is fascinating to consider the striking similarities between these nature deities and one of the most famous goddesses of the entire Olympian pantheon. Jennifer Larson, author of Greek Nymph, Myth, Cult, and Lore, suggests that, quote, that these similarities are due to the fact that both divinities are worshipped in nature, often in gardens, and the fertile, moist parts of the landscape, which were associated with female anatomy in a metaphor that is probably universal, unquote. Christina Smith then says, although the residences of nymphs are sometimes described as unruly or naturally wild, the language used to describe them, as well as the archaeological record, reveals that there was also comfort and pleasantness associated with them. They were described as cool and airy, often with furniture like rock surfaces, and frequently a dance floor for the nymphs themselves. You have here, let's look at me for a little bit. So he's describing these where nymphs live, right? And so it can be a little messy, you know, a little messy, but at the same time, the focus is they're comfortable. It's messy, but comfortable, cool and airy, using the natural world as furniture. Plus, you got a dancing floor, right? The residences are also described as having two entrances, one of which was intended to be used for the mortals, and the other which was to be used by gods and goddesses. So, whatever you do, don't go to the wrong door. So, these environments were not only special due to their divergence from usual worship localities, but also because their location was dictated first and foremost by nature. Oftentimes, the trek to and through the nymphs' abodes may have been treacherous. It took a lot of effort to get there, and oftentimes even a pilgrimage. Despite the potentially difficult journey to the area of nymph worship, the nymphs' residences themselves remain a peaceful and welcoming oasis, not only demonstrated by accounts of the experience of worshippers, but also by very welcome inscriptions that have been found near caves, such as the one I'm going to be reading below, by Pountius from the 4th century. So he inscribed this at one of these locations where the nymphs resided. He says, "Welcome visitors, every male and female, men and women, boys and girls, to a place holy to the nymphs, and Pan and Hermes, Lord Apollo, Heracles and his companions, the cave of Charon, and of Asclepius, Hygienia. Theirs is the pace and all sacred things in it, growing things and tablets and dedications with many gifts." So once again, now the earliest known, next image, discussion of a nymph's lifespan is in a Hesiodic fragment from the 8th century before the Common Era. That's a beautiful, I like this image here. This is, of course, a nymph connected to spring waters. Let's go to the next image. Um, this is connected to the idea of a prophecy. Okay, we're not there yet. Huh, some of the images didn't make it. Okay, so take that down. Okay, so I had an image there of a dying nymph. So, but that's okay. So, how long does a nymph live? So, Greek, so nymphs are connected to the energy from that which they're connected to their object. So let's just say that a nymph is connected to a tree. So nymph connects with the tree, the energy of the tree, it keeps it alive. When that tree dies, many ancient Greeks and Romans believed that the nymph also died too. So that's one of the reasons why they're not of the top order of gods, because gods typically have this idea of immortality. But in this case, if you believe in an animistic as opposed to a pantheistic understanding, then what, because pantheistic is just simply energy and just returns. Uh, you have this idea of the dying nymphs. So you'll have depictions in the ancient world of nymphs who are dying. Also, they're capable of death, even being killed in another way. So they're more vulnerable. Okay. Anyway, so that means that also that connects to a rock, a stone, a mountain. If a mountain is flattened, a rock that was holy is destroyed, it kills the spirit within it. This is a very strong belief. In fact, we see this also within the belief systems of Arabia. There is a story when Muhammad went to the Kaaba, and he destroyed the various images. Many believe that when he destroyed those images, he destroyed the gods connected or the spirits connected to those images. So that's actually literally in the actual materials itself, these elementals. So there's some very interesting studies on that, even early, of course, Islamic hadiths and so forth. Okay, next image. Now, Greek nymphs were believed to possess the powers of divination and were even described as prophetic and oracle. Evidence of their accuracy or precision with regards to consultations is scarce, and many scholars believe that visitations for the purpose of prophecy was made by those who could not afford to consult with more well-known oracles, such as Apollo. The nymphs were also believed by some to be capable of bestowing certain powers upon mortals. Certain powers upon mortals. Um, let's look at me for a moment. It's a state that's described as nympholepsy. It refers to the heightening of awareness and elevated verbal skills believed to result from the nymph's influence on a susceptible individual. This person, also known as a nympholept, would be in a state that some described as mania, as madness, but was not necessarily so unstable that surrounding individuals thought psychological assistance or support would be required. In other words, at this time, the state was somewhat desirable and was seen as a symbol of extreme worship of the power of the nymphs, as well as the resulting recognition of this devotion. So the nymphs are able to give you, in a sense, possess you and give you insights. So they have the supernatural power. They're often also known to participate in caring for young infants and children. We see many of the kids of the gods and goddesses being taken care of by them. Now, we have an idea of how nymphs were typically worshipped from both votive reliefs as well as written accounts. Let's go to the next image. Votive reliefs that depict cave sanctuaries. That's a great image too of a nymph. Let's go to the next one. Oh, these are really good images. Okay, go to the next one. We got a series of nymph images here. This, of course, is connected to nymphs related to the freshwater. Next image. And rivers. Okay, next image. Good. Okay, next image. Oh, next image. Oh, next image. Oh, huh? There's the nymph, so we just got behind, right? Next image. Okay, that's a little blurry. Let's go to the next image. Okay, so we have an idea of how nymphs were typically worshipped. Votive reliefs that depict cave sanctuaries usually include an altar, either a carved block of stone or a rustic pile of small boulders. Literary evidence suggests that other furnishings, such as seats or beds, might have been provided, or that natural formations were viewed as furnishings, according to Larson. Worshippers are often depicted with raised arms, although it looks like they have their, these are nymphs that have their hands down, as you see here. Likely a reverent gesture intended to warmly greet the nymphs upon entering their abode. Offerings were often made by devotees, usually in the form of perishable food and drink items such as fruit, animal parts, milk, oil, water, and wine. Animal sacrifices were also made most frequently inside the caves of the nymphs to act as a material demonstration of their devotion. Next image. And so this is a really good image. These are all nymphs. And you can see here, looks like a pan there to the right. Next image, connected with nature. So at the Correspond cave, a huge number of signet rings have been discovered, demonstrating that they may have had some kind of symbolic authority. This particular cave was dedicated initially to nymphs, as well as, of course, other deities as well. But the rings that were found were made out of bronze or lead, and so they're made more cheaply, as opposed to gold, led to a theory that nymphs were visited by individuals of a more lower social economic status. They can't afford the good stuff. However, so there you have it. Sorry, I got something in my throat here. Of course, other offerings include we see in various images um, that several paintings show that dolls or doll-like votives were left in water basins at the residences of nymphs. And so, in fact, one painting of Athena depicts her washing one of the water basins, and at the bottom of which several doll votives lay. Archaeological evidence shows that the hills west of Athens, of the Athenian Acropolis, the hills of the Muses, and the hills of the Nymphs, comprise of this rocky formation of some 700 acres. This is a close-up of it. Let's get to another part of it. Next image. There, that's even better. Um, Archaeological exploration of the summit of the Hill of Nymphs revealed a sanctuary dedicated to the nymphs that can be traced back to the late 7th century BCE. By the mid-5th century, this had become known as the sanctuary of the nymphs and demos. A large number of handmade terracotta figurines belonging to the typical Attic repertoire of the 6th century BCE was found in many of the sanctuaries and in this particular area too. Pausanias describes another temple dedicated to the nymphs at Critonis. He says, there is here too a cool stream of water rising from a rock, he writes in the 1st into the 2nd century CE. By the spring is a sanctuary of the nymphae and a small grove in which all the trees alike are cultivated. Next image. At the very cave, also known as the Nymphalopodus cave. This is a small cave northwest of Bari in Attica, Greece. This was used as a shrine dedicated to Apollo, Pan, and yes, the nymphs. The cave was occupied from the 6th to the 2nd century BCE. The cave then fell into disuse and was occupied again in the 4th century. It was finally abandoned in the 6th. According to inscriptions found in the cave, the sanctuary was built by Archidemus of Thera. He identified himself as a nympholypt, so one who is inspired by the nymphs, and states that he built the sanctuary at the nymphs' council. Archidemus has a cross on his right shoulder. Nobody knows the reason why, but there you have it. Next image. Oh, this is going to get fun. Okay. This right here is the Thracian sanctuary of the nymphs. It's located southwest of the village of Kasakova. This is a mineral spring, and it was considered sacred all the way back to the early Iron Age. But it was always connected to these spirits. Now, hold on tight. This is going to be a fun ride. Next image. During the Roman era, a large complex consisting of many prominent structures and an amphitheater surrounded the sanctuary. Next image. According to the preserved inscriptions, Titus Flavius Bethenketos, son of Aspinius, a Thracian veteran from the Roman army, and his wife, Claudia Montana, established the sanctuary in honor of the water nymphs and Aphrodite. Next image. The nymph-empowered healing waters were then channeled to 3 arched artificial caves in the rocks. And this veteran also, of course, built a lavish colonnade above the pool. And so this became a sanctuary of nymphs for a long period of time, attracting pilgrims, and they built hostels all around here. This is a healing place, the healing waters that were given its life via the nymphs. Next image. And you see here the inscription. Now look at me. Here's, get ready for the ride. By late antiquity, when pagan cults were deemed forbidden, the buildings about the shrine gradually fell to ruins. However, the people continued to visit this site for its healing powers and the fact that these healing spirits were there. And you know how long this lasted? 2025. It's still going on right now. That's right. We're looking at a site that continually reveres these kinds of elemental spirits. Let's go there right now. So today, visitors still come to be healed by what they believe are nature spirits that inhabit the spring. In fact, local people and even pilgrims from afar gather around the springs every Spasfiden, or the Feast of the Ascension, on the 40th day after Easter. They continue as they did in ancient times to light candles by the waters and make a sacrifice, sometimes being a lamb. Accordingly, this period of time marks the beginning of the Rucellai week. Now, the Rucellai are viewed as supernatural creatures that love water and were believed to possess healing powers. The Rucellai are directly related to and often viewed the same as the Samodevi, who are the Slavic version of the Greek nymphs, known to be wild and beautiful, abiding in both fresh water and the woodlands. They are supposedly visible from spring to autumn, during which period of time they sing and they dance from dusk till dawn. Some stories tell how they ride stags harnessed with serpents and fly off to the moon. But beware, some say they can steal a man's eyes and take blood from his heart. They are viewed as attendants of the ancient Thracian great goddess and the wild mistress of herself, of wild nature, her name being Bendis and her other name being Hecate. Wow. It is clear. This is kind of a big deal, right? Now let's go into the etymology of nymph. It is clear that the etymological nature of the term nymph, which is discussed, has some sexual significance. The nymphs were seen as sexually desirable, but free of the familial restrictions applied to mortal women, and could therefore rarely be fully domesticated. So these nymphs were never to be domesticated. Mythology suggests such that nymphs were capable of pursuing sexual relationships with mortal men, but they were generally depicted as sexual aggressors in these scenarios, and they're viewed as quite dangerous. And so we see this, right? Of course, you have Thetis and Calypso and a whole bunch of other ones. It's interesting to know that if there is a mating with there's a relationship with a nymph, she will always have a male offspring. And the reason being is because they don't want to create another nymph. So there's a limitation there. So there you have it. It's interesting, right? And now another reason that men may have hesitated to engage in these affairs may have been due to the nymph's elevated status and the resulting immunity to punishment or violence. In other words, um, uh, the nymph always wins. The nymph is, you know, in a similar way, Greek nymphs due both to their supernatural powers and their elusiveness, were not vulnerable to threats or any kind of violence from mortal men, like Greek citizens would have been. These factors uh, kind of reveal a interesting theoretical glimpse into what may occur when gendered power dynamics are reversed, right? When the male power is no longer the infallible common denominator of a Greek relationship, the affair was viewed as unstable and dangerous and frowned upon. What men, what they just with ordinary relationships, of course, the men had the power, but here they did not have the power. It was evil, either an equal aspect or the nymph had the higher power. So yes, it was frowned upon. Although, having said that, there's always a workaround. I'll talk about the workaround. You're going to find that many nymphs, well-known nymphs, were often included in genealogies as the earliest ancestors. Now, and of course, this tied Greek families together as residents of a particular area entitled to citizenship. I'll go a little bit clearer, don't worry. So, what happens is with an infallible claim that your ancestor, who was a nymph, came from this particular region, and since nymphs, by proximity, are connected energetically to that region, to that land, therefore, your family is entitled to all the resources on the land. Talk about exploitation, right? You know, we can exploit the land, but there you have it. There's always workarounds, but there you have it. Okay, let's move on. So we have the Oceanides. They were the eldest of the nymphs, daughters of the great earth encircling river Oceanus. They presided over the sources of fresh water and were responsible for the nurture of the natural world. Their numbers include naiads, or nymphs of springs and fountains, nephili, or of rain clouds. In fact, let's take a look at the next one. The naiades, yeah, very good, were nymphs of the earthly sources of fresh water, including springs, rivers, streams, wells, and fountains. In myths, many of the naiades were the wives of kings, and they hold a prominent place in royal genealogies. They often gave their names to towns and cities and islands. So there you have that. Um, those whose waters were believed to possess some special property might even have proper shrines and cults that were dedicated to them. Their powers, however, vary with those of the springs over which they preside. Some were thus regarded as having the power of restoring sick persons to health. The naiades were depicted as beautiful young women, usually seated, standing, or reclining beside a spring and holding a water jug. We are seeing a good demonstration of some of this right here. Hydria, or a frond of lush foliage. You have a reference to them in the Odyssey, where a shriek ran in my ears just then, womanish it seemed. Did it come from girls? Did it come from the nymphi who live in the high mountain tops, or in river springs, or in the grassy meadows? Right. So many young women wishing to become pregnant and to bear healthy children worship the Naiades. To do so, they would approach a sacred spring of the Naiades and throw what is called a terracotta cori into the water. Next image. This is another image of a naiad. Next image. And there's another image. These are great images. Love them. Next image. Yeah, there's dolphins there too. Always, I'm just curious of how the Greeks and Romans depict dolphins. They don't quite look like dolphins. They look almost like a bird beak. Next image. Yeah, there's another one here too. There's holding the jug, connected to the flowing streams and rivers. Next image. Here it is. This is a core. So these terracotta cori are thrown in the water. A core, a maiden, refers to statues depicting a female figure, always of a young age, which were created during the Archaic period, either as a votive or commemorative statue. And so these cori were placed into the water in order to make one pregnant. Next image. That's good. You see the size of this. They're not really small. Next image. Yeah. Here's another cori. So we find these in various wells, in places of springs. So we know that this is a place where there is the worship of a freshwater nymph that connects to the idea of pregnancy. Next image. And then we have this. Now, this is a monumental fountain. It's called a nymphaeum. A nymphaeum is a place, this is a sanctuary that is consecrated to water nymphs, and there is one virtually in every major Greek and Roman town. In fact, there's not just simply one, there's multiple ones. And so oftentimes you'll have within these various niches, you're going to have statues and images not only of gods and goddesses, but closer, further down, usually, and connected to the water fixtures, you're going to have the nymphs. If there is a particular river, the aqueduct is bringing the water from that river, you're going to have a representation of the river nymph that's usually located at the center. Like in Ephesus, you'll see this with the river Castros, for example. So originally, the name, the fam, was denoting a natural grotto with springs and streams, which is traditionally considered the habitat of nymphs, but later referred to this artificial grotto, or a building filled with plants and flowers, sculpture, fountains, and paintings. Let's look at the next image. This is a reconstruction of the one at Ephesus. You can see a pretty grand. Next image. The Nymphaeum served as a sanctuary, a reservoir, and assembly chamber where weddings were held. The rotunda nymphaeum, common in the Roman world, was borrowed from such Hellenistic structures as the great nymphaeum in Ephesus and other places besides that. Let's go to the next image. And here's another image. This is the Nymphaeum Saglasses, which is in southern Turkey. It is still in operation today. So the idea is that you're taking it's a beautiful blend of nature and integrated into public architecture. So as opposed to going to a traditional Nymphaeum shrine in the middle of nature somewhere, why not bring the shrine to the city? So it's bringing the spirit, the positive spirit of these water elementals to energetically connect to the city itself. Also, because you're doing this great act, you know the nymphs are going to watch after the water and make sure that it's clean as possible. And one thing the ancient world wants, and that is clean water. And so you'll have this clean, cleansed, purified water, not only to drink, but also to go into the baths. So you are, in a sense, swimming in sanctified water that is connected to the nymphs. Of course, this made any water controversial if you happen to be not from that particular belief system, but we will go from there and continue on. Uh, Next image. Here we go. Now we have the dryads. That's right. The dryads, these were nymphs of trees and forests and groves. Uh, some dryads were connected to naiads, and so who happened to preside over trees growing besides their spring or stream. So you're going to have this interesting relationship where, in some cases, a dryad is connected with a naiad, a water nymph, in these areas as liminal spaces, because one connects to the other. The reason why the tree is growing is because of the spring of water or the pond. And so life connects to life. So it gets kind of fuzzy. All these nymphs, whose number is almost infinite, may be divided into various classes, but the dryads are connected and are believed to be deeply woven within the very materiality of the trees. In fact, I'll go a little bit further. The spirit of the tree exists. The nymph, they exist alongside it. And in some cases, or many cases, the two are seen as one or a kind of a pair bonding. And so life force and life force working together. And so that means, here's a fun fact, that means you better watch out. If you want to cut down a tree, that could be disastrous. And so Greeks and Romans sometimes did various kinds of rituals or appeasements before they cut down a tree, trying to honor the nymphs or the elemental because they're going to be using it for a house or for something else. But they do realize that they have to ask some kind of permission. Otherwise, it's going to be a very unlucky house using wood that is taken from a tree. So you have to be, you just, you can't cut down a tree and get away with it. And so there are even certain kinds of laws in order to watch for that. Interesting. Okay. Uh, you have, of course, these nymphs were connected to forests and groves and glens. As I said before, the nymphs of trees were believed to die together with the tree, which had been their abode, and with which they had come into existence. And so the dryads are one and same with these various trees. Uh, in fact, I'm going to get more specific if you don't mind. You have those known as the hamadryads. The hamadryads, these are dryad nymphs whose life force was bound to a specific tree. We talked about this a few moments ago, but that's the proper name, this pair bonding. You have those known as the milai. The milai, these are nymphs of mountain ash and honeybees. And so they were the hamadryads or tree nymphs that are connected specifically um, to these trees that connect to bees. So bees go to them. So many of the Malay preside over local springs and bushes and plants that connect to the feeding of the bees. And so there's an interesting ecological connection between these spirits that are in these particular trees and bushes connected to honey making and the resulting honey, because that means is that there's the energy, the good energy is in the honey. The honey is sanctified. So you want to make sure. So you have. That's why you have in various temples. You're going to around nearby. You're going to have sacred groves. These sacred groves, even when it comes to for bees to enjoy, these are dedicated to, like for example, Artemis and the Ephesians, and other deities connected with honey. Okay. You also have, of course, the Oradais, which these are mountain dwelling nymphs. You're going to have the Epimaites. These are nymphs of the pastures who nourish the herds of cattle. You have I like this one. You have Leomedes. These are nymphs of flowery water meadows. And you have the Anthusi. These are nymphs of flowers. Okay. Next, you have the sky and star nymphs. Let's go. Let's look at these images. Next image. That's beautiful. So these are some of those nymphs. I love the carving. It looks like Aphrodisia from Aphrodisia. This is that special kind of marble. It just kind of shines, doesn't it? Next image. Love it. All right. So you have those known as the Nymphalae. These are nymphs of rain clouds. And so a beautiful depiction here. You have those known as the Auri. These are the nymphs of cool breezes. Next image. You have the nymphs of the Hesperides. These are the nymphs of sunsets. And finally, you have the Astarai, and these are the nymphs of the stars. Okay, next image. You also have um, Oh, this is another. Yeah, yeah. This is, you have also the sea nymphs. Next image. That's pretty good, but let's go to the next image so you can see it. Can't see it very well. Okay. The sea nymphs. You have the Halai, excuse me. These are nymphs of sea and shore. Next image, you have the Nereides. These are the nymphs of the sea. In fact, there were 50 sea nymph daughters of Nereus, the old man of the sea. They were goddesses of the sea's rich bounty and protectors of sailors and fishermen, coming to the aid of those in distress. Individually, they represented various facets of the sea, from the salty brine to the sea foam, sand, rocks, waves, currents, as well as all the various skills possessed by seamen. So there you have it. They are beautiful young maidens, sometimes running with small dolphins or fish in their hands, or else riding on the backs of dolphins, or hippocampoi or other sea creatures. They were worshipped in several parts of Greece, especially seaport towns. Next image. And here's another image of them, right? Sometimes also they appear on gems as half maidens and half fish, like we see with mermaids. And so many believe that this is another connection to the mermaid idea. Um, and so there you have it. Next image. Good, good. So you have some more of the sea nymphs. Let's see me for a little bit. You also have those known as the Lampadides. These are the torch-bearing nymphs of the underworld. They formed the train of the goddess Persephone and Hecate. Many underworld nymphs were described as daughters of the infernal rivers. So there you have it. You have also those known as the Maianides. These are the orgastic nymphs in the train of the god Dionysus. Let's go to the next image. So when you get to Greek and Roman philosophy, you have all of these elementals. And so Empedocles from 490 to 430 BCE, he has the idea that the universe is composed of four elements: earth, air, fire, water, calling them roots and often attributing each to a god. Earth with Hades, air with Hera, fire with Zeus, and Persephone with water. But what are the forces? The forces that mix with the four elementals. Well, he says these forces are known as love and strife. Accordingly, love is responsible for the attraction of different forms of matter, and strife, nekos, is the cause of their separation. Love is the power of attraction, which is both evident in nature and in human behavior. But so is strife, which is the power of repulsion that is also seen in nature and exhibited in human behavior. While sometimes one force is stronger than the other, they both continually exist. With that said, Empedocles proposed that there was a time when all four elements and the two forces of love and strife were at rest in a place of serenity and peace. At this time, love held the four elements together as a perfect sphere, while strife was all along the perimeter of the sphere. With the separation of the four elements, earth became the ground, water became the sea, air became the region about them, and fire became the sun and the stars. Next image. Plato, next image, explored. Oh, that's more of that. That's good. Next image. Plato explored the idea of three-dimensional space with his theory of shapes that were known as Platonic solids, which is a regular convex polyhedron, which is constructed by congruent or identical in shape and size, regular, all angle, equal, all sides equally, polygonal faces. Earth was associated with the cube. Air was associated with the octahedron, water with the icosahedron, and fire with the tetrahedron. Excuse me. Next image. Aristotle later expanded on Empedocles' idea in his influential Metaphysics. He wrote that all matter and all men are influenced by the qualities of the four elements: earth, dry and cold; air, wet and hot; fire, dry and hot; and water, wet and cold. Uh, One ancient way to create such a union was in what's called the Pyria, the Greek equivalent of a Native American sweat lodge, bringing earth, air, fire, and water together in the ceremonial setting. The Pyria, like a sweat lodge, was made of blankets stretched over a wooden frame. Stones, earth are heated, fire, then placed in a cauldron inside the Pyria, where water is poured over them, forming steam representing the union of all four elements. Middle Platonism then went on to associate the elementals specifically with various spirits and daemons. So the human soul itself has a daemon, and so you have these ideas. Next image. So we move in time to Paracelsus. Paracelsus writes in 1493 to 1541, but he drew from older mythological and religious traditions. Paracelsus describes four categories of elementals: gnomes, undines, sylphs, and salamanders. Paracelsus describes elementals as invisible, spiritual counterparts of visible nature, many resembling human beings in shape, inhabiting worlds of their own, unknown to man because his undeveloped senses were incapable of functioning beyond the limitation of grosser elements. That's a quote from him there. So let's go over the first one, which is, of course, gnomes. Next image. So the gnomes connect to the idea of the earth, and they first appear in Paracelsus in the 16th century and then in other places. So this is an earth elemental. Um, Now, the word gnome is from the Latin gnomos, which is based upon the Greek gay nomos, which literally means earth dweller. They were said to measure 2 spans, which is double from the tip of the thumb to the tip of the little finger. They had the ability to move through the solid ground as if moving through the air. So they are earth elemental. We talked about at the introduction of this talk today, we talked about specifically the fact that there are many of these kinds of gnome-like creatures connected to the earth. It's all not only known in Europe, but even further abroad. Okay, the next image, the next one is the undines. The undines appear, they are a water elemental. So they are depicted as female because water was considered a feminine element. Undines can be found in pools, waterfalls, lakes, and the sea. So you see how Paracelsus is just basically defining, categorizing ideas that are already there, as we saw through our example of Greek and Roman mythology and the nymphs. They were particularly known for their beautiful singing voices. Next image. Their soul is quite a bit less than humans, but if they marry a mortal, while their lives become shorter, they will earn an immortal human soul in the process. So they are, of course, Nereides, Limnads, Naiads, and mermaids, and so forth. The next image are the sylphs. The sylphs, these are the air spirits. They're connected oftentimes to trees, and they're directly related also to the idea of fairies. Next image. Finally, you got the salamander, an actual living creature, and this is associated with the element of fire. This goes all the way back to Pliny the Elder, who states that the salamander had the ability to extinguish fire with the frigidity of their bodies, a quality which was reported as hearsay by Aristotle. So salamanders are connected to fire. It's interesting because you're going to see aspects of these images, especially the salamander, these alchemical symbols, in a place known as Notre Dame. So you refer to my Notre Dame talk, and you'll see some of these images connected to that. Next image. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, of which his book is actually the setting for my microphone right now. It makes it tall enough. Says that there are four elements and the original grounds of all corporeal things: fire, earth, water, air, of which all elemental inferior bodies are compounded. So he says, it is the unanimous consent, he says, of all Platonists that as in the original and a world, all things are in all. So also in this corporeal world, all things are in all. So also the elements are not only in these inferior bodies, but also in the heavens, in stars, in devils, in angels, and lastly in God, the maker and original example of all things. He says, amongst the stars also some are fiery, as Mars and Sol, airy as Jupiter and Venus, watery as Saturn and Mercury, and earthy such as the inhabitants of the eighth orb and the moon. There are also amongst the signs some fiery, some earthy, some airy, and some watery, when he talks about the various signs of the zodiac. So Aries possesseth the beginning of fire, Leo the progress and increase, and Sagittarius the end. Taurus the beginning of the earth, Virgo the progress, and Capricorn the end. Gemini the beginning of the air, Libra the progress, Aquarius the end. Cancer the beginning of water, Scorpio the middle, and Pisces at the end. So he orders it in this way. So he says, of the mixtures, therefore, of these planets and signs, together with the elements, are all bodies made. Also, according to orders of angels, some are fiery, as the seraphim, and authorities and powers, earthy as the cherubim, watery as thrones and archangels, and airy as dominions and principalities. So he does have it all organized. Let's go to the next image. Oh, what's this? Is it a mermaid? Well, okay. So the Nereids were the Greek nymphs of the sea, and they eventually became part of the background of mermaids, which in turn are these kind of human fish hybrids. But the first known mermaid stories appears in Assyria around 1000 BCE. The goddess Artagatis, mother of Assyrian queen Semiramis, loved a mortal, a shepherd, and unintentionally killed him. Ashamed, she jumped in a lake and took the form of a fish, but the waters would not conceal her divine beauty. Thereafter, she took the form of a mermaid, a human above the waist and fish below. Although the earliest representations of Artagatis show her as a fish with a human head and arm. Let's go to the next image. Of course, she's mostly known to look more like this and connected to an air aspect. Next image. A popular Greek legend had that Alexander the Great's sister, seen here, Thessalonike, turned into a mermaid after her death, and she lived in the Aegean. She would ask the sailors on any ship that she would encounter only one question: is King Alexander alive? To which the correct answer was, he lives and reigns and conquers the world. So remember that if you are in the Mediterranean and this mermaid comes up and asks you, is King Alexander alive? Whatever you do, don't say he died. This answer would please her if you said he's alive. And so she would accordingly calm the waters and bid the ship farewell. Any other answer would enrage her, and she would stir up a terrible storm, dooming the ship and every sailor aboard. Again, please do that. Next image. The Norman chapel of Durham Castle, built around 1078 by Saxon stonemasons, has what is probably the earliest surviving artistic depiction of a mermaid in England. It can be seen on the south facing capital above one of the original Norman stone pillars. Mermaids appear in British folklore as unlucky omens, both foretelling disaster and provoking it. Several variants of the Ballad of Sir Patrick Spens depict a mermaid speaking to the doomed ships. In some versions, she tells them that they will never see land again. In others, she claims they are near shore, which they are wise enough to know means the same thing. Mermaids can also be a sign of approaching rough weather, and some have been described as monstrous in size, some up to 2,000 feet. Oh, that's pretty big. Next image has another image of a mermaid here. Not exactly the lovely lady type that we're used to, right? um, Next image. Yeah, mermaids have been described as able to swim up rivers to freshwater lakes. In one story, the Laird of Lornty um, basically went to aid a woman he thought was drowning in a lake near his house. A servant of him pulled him out, warning that it was a mermaid, and that the mermaid screamed at them that she would have killed them if it were not for his servant. So, according to legend, um, next image, let's have a nicer one. Here we go. According to legend, a mermaid came to the Cornish village of Zenor, where she used to listen to the singing of the chorister by the name of Matthew Tremuella. The two fell in love, and Matthew went with the mermaid to her home at Pendar Cave. On summer nights, the lovers can be heard singing together. That's a better story. Some tales raise the question of whether mermaids had immortal souls or not. Let's just see me for a little bit. And so that's always a big question. Mermaids from the Isle of Man, known as the Benvari, are considered more favorable towards humans than those of other regions, with various accounts of assistance, gifts, and rewards. So it's not all bad, right? Elementals, we talked about this a little bit, but the Celts have elementals, Germanic and Norse elementals. We talked about those a little bit, but let's mention a little bit about elves. Yes, elves are viewed as elementals too, connected to the earth. The word elf is found throughout the Germanic language and seems to have meant white being. Reconstructing the early concept of an elf depends largely on texts. Many of these are written by Christians in Old and Middle English, as well as medieval German and Old Norse. These associated elves variously connect with earlier gods of Norse mythology. So even though we find this in Anglo-Saxon Germanic literature, there are connections that go further on to a Norse background. The elf tended to become the elf. How do I say this? The elves are, in a sense, hidden beings. The earliest surviving manuscripts mention elf in any Germanic languages are from Anglo-Saxon. Let's go to the next image, where elves are most often mentioned of all things. Oh, look, we have one more mermaid there. Okay, that's a friendly one, by the way. Oh, one more saying hi. There we go. Not good what's happening to this, but you have elves here. Yay. With a guy full of arrows. Okay, so this is actually one of the earliest images we have from Anglo-Saxon England of an elf or elves. All right, so the earliest mentions of elves are most often mentioned in medical texts, which attest to the belief that elves might afflict humans and livestock with illnesses. Apparently, mostly sharp internal pains and mental disorders are connected by elves. Beliefs in elves causing illnesses remain prominent in early modern Scotland, where elves were viewed as being supernaturally powerful people who lived invisibly alongside everyday rural people. The elves, again, are connected to the realm or the earth, right? So you see that there. Um, in his travelogue, composed around 1020 CE, Sigvat the Skald, court poet of Olaf II of Norway, mentions an elven sacrifice, that there is an elven sacrifice. Let's go to the next image. This is a nice close up of an elf. Hi. Okay. Let's just see me now. An elven sacrifice. And so elves were sacrificed too in what is now Sweden. So after an arduous journey, Sigvatur and his companions arrived at the homestead called Hof, which probably is a modern Storahof. They expected to be received according to the laws of hospitality, but the door remained shut. Sigvatur had to stick his nose down into a narrow opening in order to present himself, but the people of the household declined by saying that the place was hallowed. He retorted that the trolls should take them and continued to the next homestead. At the following farm, he met a lady who told him to go away and said, "Don't go further inside, oh unlucky man. We are afraid of Odin's wrath. We are pagans." Then she chased him away as if he were a wolf and said that they were having the elven sacrifice at the homestead. This sacrifice occurred at the end of autumn when the crops had been harvested and the animals were most fat. Unlike the great blots at Uppsala and Mer, the Alphabot was a local celebration, or the elven sacrifice, local celebration at the homesteads. However, since the elves were collective powers with a close connection to ancestors and fertility, it is possible that this elven sacrifice concerned the ancestor worship as well as the life force of the family. And so another way of looking at elves you never expected. The Codex Regius was written during the 13th century, but nothing was known about its whereabouts until 1643, which is one of the earliest surviving texts that mention an elf in any Norse legend. So we know a lot about that. Fairies, we'll conclude with the fairy section, which is fairly obvious. Fairies, even within, we got some fairies here. So looks like we got an earth fairy here. You know, we have a kind of like a dryad, right? We got the ones that has the wings right here. This is actually my mom's. My mom. So there you have that. Fairies, even without the classical four elements, were understood to be associated with the air, and so understood as air spirits. They have multiple origins from the pre-Christian stratum, and so appear to have been minor deities or elementals recognized throughout Northern Europe, from Ireland, Britain, Wales, and Scotland to Gaul, especially Brittany, Germania, and even Slavic realms. They were the tree spirits and nymphs of Northern Europe. As for the name fairy, it derives from the vulgar Latin word fata, meaning something to do with fate. That is then combined with the abstract noun ending airy when it enters into Old French and becomes fée or fée, referring specifically to a woman who was skilled in magic and who knew the power and virtue of words, as well as of stones, as well as of herbs, and yes, of the future. That is fate. Because of this association, that which was called a fairy was used to represent an illusion or enchantment with the land of the fays, who were collectively believed to be the inhabitants thereof. The word fairy was also used as an adjective, meaning that which is enchanted, but also became a generic word for various enchanted creatures during the late Middle English period around 1420 CE. The current usage is different, of course, as fairy, you know. So when people say, is there, you know, people like to spell fairies different ways. I'll just have to say, you're all right, you're all wrong, and you're all right. The earliest reference to fairies, as we know them in England, arrives from the historian Gervasi of Tilbury, he lived between 1150 to 1220 during the 13th century, but the belief in fairies long predates the name that was later placed upon them, going back to prehistoric period in much of northern Europe, where they were equated to the elementals. Fairies are generally described as human in appearance and having magical powers, right? They have their different kinds, of course, throughout the centuries. Usually, they are small. They are connected with magic. Um, they're said to have sometimes have be dressed in dark gray, sometimes seen wearing armor. In some folklore, fairies have green eyes. Some depictions of fairies show them with footwear, others barefoot. Oftentimes they're shown perched on various stems and the back of birds and having wings. Fairy locks, of course, are a result. So, messed up hair will be a result of fairies tangling and knotting the hairs of the sleeping children as they play in and out of their hair at night. Typically, a fairy ring is a naturally occurring ring or arc of mushrooms. The ring may grow over 10 meters in diameter and they become stable over time as fungus grows and seeks food underground. Well, fairy rings are believed, or fairy circles are believed to be portals, openings to the fairy world. Many folks believe that that superstition means that leads them to not go into a fairy ring. In fact, they are warned never to enter because terrible things will happen to them, at least, according to some traditions, right? So what happens is this: in an Irish legend recorded by Wilde, a farmer builds a barn on a fairy ring, despite the protest of his neighbors. He is struck senseless one night, and a local fairy doctor breaks the curse. The farmer says that he dreamed that he must destroy the barn. Even collecting dew from the grass or flowers of a fairy ring can bring bad luck. Destroying a fairy ring is unlucky and fruitless, and superstition says it'll just grow back. A traditional Scottish rhyme sums up the danger of these fairy rings. It goes as follows: He what tills the fairies green, nae luck again shall hae, and he what spills the fairies ring, betide him want and way. For weirdless days and weary nights are his till his deein days. That means dying, right? um, but he what gaze by the fairy ring, they dull pine shall see, and he what cleans the fairy ring, an easy death shall he. Numerous legends focus on mortals entering a fairy ring and the consequences. One superstition is that anyone who steps into an empty fairy ring will die at a young age. A 20th century tradition from Somerset calls the fairy rings a galley trap and says that a murderer or thief who walks in the ring will be hanged. Most often, someone who violates a fairy perimeter becomes invisible to mortals outside and may find it impossible to leave the circle. Often, the fairies force the mortal to dance to the point of exhaustion, death, or madness. So beware, you may dance to death. Freedom from a fairy ring often requires outside intervention. A tactic from the early 20th century Wales is to cast a wild majorum and thyme into the circle and befuddle the fairies. Another asks the rescuer to touch the victim with iron. Other stories require that the enchanted victim simply be plucked out by someone on the outside, although even this can seem difficult. Mortals who have danced with the fairies are rarely safe after being saved from their enthrallments. Often they find that what seemed to be but a brief foray into fairyland was indeed much longer in the mortal realm, possibly weeks or years, right? In most tales, these saved interlopers face a grim fate. Some legends assert that the only safe way to investigate a fairy ring is to run around it 9 times. So there you have it. Fairies of Scotland. are divided into the Seelie court, the more beneficially inclined but still dangerous, and the unseelie court, the more malicious. While fairies of the seelie court enjoy playing generally harmless pranks on humans, those of the unseelie court often brought harm to humans for their very entertainment. The seelie court are known to seek help from humans, to warn those who have accidentally offended them, and to return human kindness with favors of their own. Since then, they are said to appear in border regions. Border regions can refer to times such as twilight. The unseelie court, um, no offense, is necessary to bring down their assaults. As a group or host, they appear at night and assault travelers, often carrying them through the air, beating them, and forcing them to commit such acts as shooting at cattle. Um, but it's interesting. There's always exception to every rule. Um, did you guys know that most are malevolent, but sometimes some of those of the unseelie court happens to like somebody, and they will protect them. And so they're of the dark side, but they'll be your ally because they like you. So you have this really tough and scary advocate to protect you. In Scotland, it was peculiar to the fairy women to assume the shape of deer. So the fairies of Wales, I will say, um, they are described as fair-haired and sometimes golden haired. They do sometimes kidnap. Um, uh, so children whom they kidnap, they leave as changelings in their place. They dance and make fairy rings. They live underground or under the water. But fairy maidens may become the wives of human men. And there's many stories where there are interactions between humans. In fact, we're not going to go through it because we don't have any time for that. But it turns out that while in Ireland and in Scotland and in England, the fairies are typically looked at as you better avoid them. You should try to as best you can. In some cases in Wales, especially northern Wales, it's like, hey, we come from a lineage of fairies, and unlike not all the time, but in some cases, um, for if you're Welsh, you can enter a fairy circle in some traditions, not only survive uh, and untouched, but come out with a fairy love. So there you have it. So the Welsh are all, hey, can't beat them, let's join them. And so once again, there's lots of stories within Welsh mythology where there's an interaction more with these fairies, where in other places they are not. I think we have a really good overview of elementals. We kind of covered quite a few. I could go into yakshis and yakshas of India, these tree spirits of all different kinds in the Indian subcontinent. I can talk about also other traditions. I also Shintoism. I could go into the kami. One interesting thing about the kami is that very much animism. The word kami connects not only to the spirit within all things, but connects to the spirit within the entire universe. So you have that which is the absolute self, and then you have Kenkai and Yukai. And those notions are you have the visible and the invisible universe, and it's all held together by this energy field known as the Musibi, the Musibi energy field. And this is a positive energy field that connects to all of the spiritual realm, and that spiritual realm are inhabited by the kami. Kami can be not only the human soul, not only be that which are connected to gods and goddesses, but also the elementals, the spirits, to rocks and trees and mountains and rivers and so forth. The kami is within everything. And the musibi is the energy field that holds it all together. So we're going to see this idea, as we also explored in other aspects, that these elementals, the entire universe, has these kinds of matrices, these kinds of fields. Oh, by the way, so this Musebi field is that which is order, and it's only fought, it's fought against, of course, is chaos. So chaos is that which breaks it apart. So Musebi is energy, it's order. And so what it's kind of fun, I'll mention that Shinto shrines, they're pretty cool looking. You got the torii in front, the monumental gateway with the karashishi, the lion doggies in front, one representing with the mouth open, one with the mouth closed. The mouth open is the idea of warding away any kind of evil spirits. The mouth closed is to keep in the good spirits. It also connects us to the ah and which are the first sound and the last sound of the Japanese alphabet. So it's kind of like the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end. So you cross over the karashishis, you go through the tori, which has these kind of like these two totem poles covered with a beam, and it has a loopy thing, and you go in there, and then of course you arrive at the Shinto shrine, and you ring the bell, and you ring the bell, and you ring the bell, and the priest comes up and tells you to stop ringing the bell, and then you do the wash oblations, and you go, I'm excited, I'm going into a Shinto shrine. You go inside, and there's nothing in there, hardly anything in there, except these tablets here that people who wanted to pass their exams, please. So why? Because here we go. Because the entire building, the Shinto shrine, is a container of musebi, container of this energy of the kami, the energy that is positive. It's a repository of this, and so you go in there to connect with it. That's what it is. The building in of itself. Of course, it uses itself up. It's like a battery. And so after 20 years, typically a Shinto shrine is torn down because the energy is all used up and they build a new one. So what you do is you arrive at the Shinto shrine and you buy something or take something or a plant, or whatever it is, and you bring this musebi positive energy from the Shinto shrine to your altar at home. And so that energy field, the musebi energy, is heightened and goes to your house, right? And so therefore your kami and the energy of the entire universe of Shintoism, you connect with it directly. Now, the problem is you got this negative energy, chaos, that upsets it. And so what you have to do is you have to clear various sites. So they have this kind of a paper that has zigzag paper on the edges of it. They also have a wand that Shinto priests have that has zigzag paper on it. And what's believed is you wave it a certain way, it disrupts the negative power and allows the musebi and the kami to all connect together and positive stuff. Because if you let chaos take over, you could trip down the stairs or be struck by lightning. It can happen all different ways. Who knows? So what you'll do here is that so what they'll do is you're calling a Shinto priest, for example, and you have your car, you got a brand new car, or let's say you got a used car. You make sure that doesn't have any negative energy around it, and so you have to purify it so that the musebi can work around that energy field. You guys got it, right? And the kami that was within all these different kinds of things, and it clears it up, and so you won't get a lemon. Also, when you go, you get a house. You call the Shinto priest. They do a ritual there. So once again, you have this active sense of this elemental ideas within a living religion today, and that is Shintoism. And Shintoism goes way back when, all the way back to the end of the Paleolithic, Neolithic age. You have aspects of Shintoism, not formalized, but aspects, animism, that will eventually feed in. And by the time you get to the 100s and the first and second, third centuries, it becomes integrated into a system that we know and mythology be written, that is Shintoism. So there, hey, I got to Japan. I'm happy now. So, but that's a nice tie of conclusion. where we began with animism and we ended with animism. So I hopefully you're animated and happy about what we talked about today. And I'm going to go ahead and close up and just say that it's been a pleasure having you here tonight. And I hope you enjoyed all the multitude of stories and realize that there's more similarities in these stories than differences, which does reveal somewhat a common consciousness on some level of humanity. Have a good night.